Good afternoon. Today we're going to be talking about setting better boundaries in relationships. First, a little housekeeping. Please drop a live if you're here live with me. I'd love to know you're here. And if you are watching the replay, please drop a replay down below. So if you're here live, let me know. Let me know you're here. I'd love to know where you're watching from. And if you are dropping in to watch the replay, I'd love to know that too. If you'd like access to the show notes after this, drop a notes down below so that I can get those to you, make sure you get them. And lastly, I am holding a masterclass on April 25th, Monday, April 25th, and it's titled Real Talk: How to Share Your Truth in Your Relationships Without Blowing Them Up. And the opt-in page for that masterclass is almost ready. So drop the word masterclass if you'd like me to get the link to you for that. Highly recommend that you come. I'll be sharing all sorts of actionable communication tips to be more authentic and real and share your truth in your relationships in such a way that you don't blow them up, which is a fear that I hear people say a lot. I'm Marie Elizabeth Molly. If we haven't already met, I'm Marie Elizabeth Molly, and I help people have relationships that are more true, loving, connected because of how they show up in them. I help people work through the barriers to love and connection, and both the inner work as well as the outer work to learn greater skill. Again, I've got a masterclass coming up on April 25th. So if you'd like information about that, including the link to opt in, drop masterclass below and I will get that to you as soon as that page is ready. So today we are talking about setting better boundaries in relationships. And I'm going to come over here and check out the comments. As always, I love to know if you're here live with me. So drop a live, drop a replay if you're watching the replay. And you are welcome to chime in on the conversation. So when I'm speaking, please go ahead and share your comments, questions in the chat, and I will get to those when I get to them. So it can be hard to set healthy boundaries in our relationships. We don't necessarily have a lot of good models for that. Whether we're talking about our relationship with family, romantic partner, work, friends, but boundaries are essential for any type of relationship. And I'm going to tell you why. In this video, you're going to learn simple ways to set better boundaries and really hold your boundaries in a different light than maybe you have before. And you'll also learn why setting boundaries is so important. The first thing I want to start with is that boundaries are not the same as walls. In fact, one of my favorite quotes is by Mark Groves, and he said, "Walls keep people out, boundaries teach people where the door is." Boundaries aren't a complete closing off in the way that a wall is, but they're an invitation to others to engage with you in a way that allows the right level of opening, the door, to occur at the right time. So when you don't have good boundaries, you're going to tend to armor up around certain people so that you don't abandon yourself. We put up walls when we're afraid, but we also put up walls when we don't trust ourselves to hold our own boundaries. You may also have generally a difficult time saying no. It may just be hard to say no because you were raised to be agreeable. You were raised to be flexible. You were raised to do your parents' bidding. You were raised to be malleable and a caretaker even. And so for someone in that position, it might be good to put up walls for a period of time while you figure out what's actually true for you and what you like and don't like, who you are. You might need to put up an armor, or walls in the meantime so that you can cultivate the room to do that inner work. I don't have a problem with that. It might be necessary. Where it gets messed up is when you forget to take them down and they just become part of you, and you start to think that that's who you are, is this armored person, or you can feel like there's this barrier between you and the world that other people can't get through and that you somehow can't take down. That's where it gets sticky, this walls piece. So I want to say that walls aren't a problem, in the sense of like they're not something wrong with you that you need to fix, and you're not wrong for having put them up when you needed them. They're a survival mechanism. They might have been a necessary part of surviving your childhood or surviving your adolescence. But if you want to grow beyond that state, beyond the state of survival, or beyond the age at which the need for walls arose, you're going to need to learn how to soften them. You're going to need to learn how to create a boundary instead of a wall. So when you're ready, and only you know when that is, when you're ready, your next step is going to be to shift out of those behaviors that help you survive and to cultivate new behaviors that support your opening and your growth and your thriving, even as you have clear and healthy boundaries. That's the shift that needs to happen for your walls to become boundaries. Number 2, the second thing to remember is until you have a clear no, your yes, it will not be trustworthy. I'm going to say that again. Until you have a clear no, your yes isn't trustworthy. A muddy yes makes you untrustworthy and sets the stage for you to be violated by others. When you're not clear about your no and you're not clear about your yes, people will overstep because they don't know where the line is, because it's in mud. It's not clear. People will have to pussyfoot around you. So either they'll overstep and you'll feel violated, or they'll pussyfoot and be overly careful because they don't know if your yes is real or not. And they often end up feeling wrong because you come at them for something they did that felt violating, that they didn't know was an overstep, because you haven't been clear with them about what your yes and your no is. In addition, every time you say yes when you mean maybe or no, it's like death by 1,000 cuts to your self-esteem and your self-regard. So the key to developing self-respect and integrity with yourself is doing the work to get clear on your yes and your no, and communicating both effectively. If you consider holding a boundary as an expression of your sovereignty, of your self-esteem, as an expression of integrity, it gets easier. Where boundaries get hard to uphold is when you're overly focused on how they are going to land with another person. Will that person reject me? Will they respect it? Will they, what will happen over there when I make this boundary clear? If your focus is on that, it's going to be super hard to uphold your boundaries. Your yes and your no are going to be hard to find. Whereas if your locus of center of control, of agency is inside, and you are being true with your yes and your no, it's a gift to other people, to the people who love you, because they will know where they stand and they will know how to win with you. Because a boundary isn't only a no. I mean, we think of it that way, but it's also really the door. As Mark Groves said, a boundary, walls keep people out. Boundaries teach people where the door is. You are teaching people where the door is. That is a gift. That is why boundaries rock. And when you are anchored in your yes and your no clearly and know how to communicate them effectively, A, you become a more trustworthy person, and B, people can win with you a lot more often. Life gets better. How's this landing so far? I want to share with you a quote that really relates to this second piece about having a clear yes and a no. Thank you. Dana says, yes. My other favorite quote about boundaries, besides the Mark Groves quote, is by Prentice Hemphill. And they said, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. I'm going to say that again. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. How many of us were brought up with a self-abandoning concept of love? Well, if you love me, you wouldn't say no. If you love me, you wouldn't, you would do this thing. If you love me, XYZ. That's not love. And that's setting you up to have terrible boundaries and a lot of confusion about why love feels bad in your system, because you have your nervous system has a confused understanding of love. Exactly. Beautiful comment. Dana says that's manipulation. Exactly. So that first quote is pretty common by Prentice Hemphill. I'm going to say the second part because it actually goes on. So boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Boundaries give us the space to do the work of loving ourselves. They might be actually the first and fundamental expression of self-love. They also give us the space to love and witness others as they are, even those that have hurt us. Deep. That's deep. Marinate, rewind and marinate on that one. And if you're not familiar with their work, check them out because they're brilliant. The third idea around boundaries that I wanted to share with you today is a bit more practice-based. The first two have been more theory and kind of understanding why boundaries matter, what they are, how to begin to cultivate them, why they might be so hard to discern. And this piece is a bit more practice-based. So in order to begin developing a stronger relationship with your own boundaries and even to know what they are, first of all, you need to discern. When somebody does something and you go like that's a sign that there was a boundary that was unclear, and either they crossed it because they didn't know it was there, or they don't care and they just are going to try to do what they want to do. Some people, don't care about violating boundaries. There can be, with consent, there can be a really skillful game that one could play consensually in relationship around violating boundaries to get better facility about how to respond. I don't recommend you try this with the uninitiated, though. This is best done with supervision and with consent, as I've said 3 times now. Super clear, I hope. So the third piece here is practice saying yes with more specificity and saying no with fewer words. What do I mean? If you're a yes, if somebody offers to do something for you and you're a yes, be specific. Or if you're asking for something you want, be specific. For example, if someone offers to make you a cup of coffee or to make you a cup of tea, don't just say, yes, please. Let them know how you like it. Do you have a favorite kind of tea? Do you have a favorite kind of coffee? Do you want an Americano? Do you want just Sanka? Do you want ground coffee? Do you want an Americano? Do you want a cappuccino? It all depends on the capability of, the person making. But you get my point. Do you want milk in it? Do you want sugar? How much? Be specific. In our house, we get super granular. I mean, Patrick has figured out the temperature at which I like my coffee brewed, and he likes his coffee brewed at a different temperature than mine because he likes less punch. He likes less bitterness. We both know how much, milk, how much sugar. I don't take sugar, but if he wants honey in his coffee, whatever it is, because we've taught each other the specifics. So the yes is an invitation to get specific with what you want. And when you're opening the door to someone to show them how to love you well, the better you know yourself and the more specific you can be, the better it is for them too, because they get to win with you more easily, and winning is fun. The reason I say no with fewer words is because many of us are very uncomfortable with saying no. We've been trained, as I said before, to have shitty boundaries and to be people pleasers and caretakers and all of that. So there's a deep discomfort with saying no and a fear of what no brings. So the tendency will be to pad the no with a bunch of extra justification. But this extra justification and explanation weakens that no. So I invite you to consider and practice saying, no, thank you. And then sitting in the churn and the discomfort internally, and that piece that wants to say, well, because I have so much going on and I just can't, and I can't, blah, 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 blah. Leave that out. Your no will be much better received and respected when it's firm. And all that extra explanation makes it less firm. And I will say a piece about the thing that just flew out of my head, which I have to grasp and get back. No, being solid. Wow, it's such a trip when that happens. Are there any questions? How's this landing? I would love to know. And let's see if this thing I wanted to say, this final piece I wanted to say about boundaries, comes back in the meantime while I wait for your comments to show up. That's what it was. The fourth piece, I'm going to add this fourth piece. The fourth piece about boundaries, which I better write down or I'll lose it. The more clear you are about your boundaries, the less they get challenged. I'm going to say that again. The more clear you are about your boundaries, the less they will be challenged and the less you will have to explain them. Why? Because your energy will communicate them. For example, when I became a no to unavailable men, I happen to be heterosexual, so I'm going to say men. When I became a no to being strung along by unavailable men or, attaching myself to unavailable men, I stopped attracting that. So I would attract that when I was a match for that particular dynamic. And then when I was no longer a match for that particular dynamic, that dynamic stops showing up. I became a boundary to unavailable, flaky partners or potential partners. which is not to send anybody who's attracting unavailable people down some road of self-blame or shame or anything like that. It's not to say that. It's just an example from my own life. And it is an invitation to have an inquiry into, what are you an energetic match for? What are you tolerating in your life? Where are your boundaries fuzzy? Where are you not being clear about your yes and your no? Where do you need to shore up your own relationship to your own boundaries so you stop self-abandoning? That's the invitation. No need to beat ourselves up here. Just take a look at what needs to be done. Just take a look at what is and what needs to be done. Beautiful comment here. Learning boundaries is one of the most important lessons I have learned in life. Agreed. Huge, huge. Any other comments before I recap for today? I love this topic, and it's such a key topic. And we are going to be talking about this and working with boundaries in my Relationship Alchemy program, which is my year-long program that begins in May for women who want to revolutionize and improve how they show up in their relationships so that they feel juicy and fun and expansive and loving and connected. Whether you're in a relationship or not, you're invited to message me, inquire about it. A great first step would be for you to join my masterclass. So if you are interested in learning a first piece of boundaries, which is around communication, drop the word masterclass below and I'll get you information about it. It's happening on April 25th. It's called Real Talk, How to Share Your Truth in Your Relationships Without Blowing Them Up. When you're clear about your boundaries, you actually don't have to clobber anybody over the head with them. You can just be them and they will feel it. And you can adjust people gently because people make mistakes. You can extend grace because people make mistakes. Back to the comments. All right, I am going to recap now. Today we're talking about boundaries, how we tend to struggle to set healthy boundaries on our relationships, whether it's with a romantic partner, family, friends, our work, but they're essential for any type of relationship. And here's why. Because, as Mark Groves says so beautifully, number one, boundaries are not the same as walls. Walls keep people out, and boundaries teach people where the door is. Boundaries are not a closing off. They're rather an invitation to others to engage with you in a way that allows for the right opening at the right time. Number two, until you have a clear no, your yes will not be trustworthy. So it behooves you to focus on learning your own no and your own yes clearly, because a muddy yes sets the stage for other people to violate your boundaries because you haven't been clear about where they are. And to this point, here's another one of my favorite quotes about boundaries by Prentice Hemphill. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Boundaries are an expression of self-love. Knowing your no and knowing your yes are an expression of self-love. Worth doing the work to get. Number three, practice saying yes with more specificity and no with fewer words. So when you want something or you're saying yes to something, let people know how you want it. If someone's making you a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, what type of tea do you want? Do you want milk and sugar in your coffee? How strong do you want your coffee brewed? These are all ways for you to be super specific with your yes. Also applies in bed. Be super specific with your yes. Oh, yes, please touch me like this pressure, this direction, this length, this speed, all these things that you could be specific about to have the interaction be super pleasurable for both of you because they're winning with you and you're enjoying what's happening. When you're a no to something, consider having no or no thank you be a complete sentence, because it's your discomfort with no that will have you tend to pad or justify or over explain that no, which then weakens it. So if you have a lot of experience of people pushing back at you when you say no, investigate. Are you explaining it too much? Are you padding it too much? What happens if you just say no, thank you? Or no, I'm not available for that, and leave it there. And the fourth is the more clear about your boundaries that you are, the less pushback you'll receive. So when you become a stand for something or a stand against something, and you're clear in your own yes and your own no, you will find that a lot of the pushback that you may currently be experiencing or have experienced in the past will go away. Today, we've been talking about setting better boundaries in relationships. I'm Marie Elizabeth Mali, your relationship alchemist. And remember, a great relationship starts with you.